Welcome to Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. Today is Saturday, September 11th, 2021, and it felt like I had to sign a million different dates today. I had a heavy heart all day. I do remember where I was 20 years ago. I was talking with a fellow student at Southwestern Seminary. We were walking in to chapel, and he was asking about what was going on in my life, and I told him the next day at work was going to be my work anniversary, the anniversary of when I started working. And we walked in, and normally as you walk in chapel, and we were early enough that normally people were talking, visiting, and we were going to see friends and stuff, and we were met at the door with one of the professors that we knew, and he told us to be quiet and go in prayerfully. And I'm like, why are we going in quietly, prayerfully, 10, 15 minutes early? And Dr. Hemphill, the president, was already beginning to lead a prayer service for this nation. And about every 5 minutes through the thing, he would update the crowd about what was happening. And then when seminary, the chapel was supposed to start, we did start, but I can tell those who planned the service had quickly changed plans. They were dealing with grief and with horror and the attack. And in one sense, it was a wonderful service to attend, because you start with worshiping God and praying and seeking His face, and humbling ourselves and seeking His will. And immediately went from that to a class where 2 weeks later we were supposed to study how you dealt with grief in the community. And the professor says, we're just going to pull that lecture 2 weeks forward. We're going to deal with it today, because it's going to be relevant to what you're going to do when you leave this class immediately. And immediately from that class, I went to another one where he goes, I'm going to put on the television, we're going to watch the news, and we're going to pray for this nation. And everything this nation did didn't make the world better. We as people did not humble ourselves and seek God's face and pray and turn from our wicked way. And our nation has continued to reel from problem to problem, to issue to issue. Pestilence running through the land. Enemies attacking. Natural disaster. I don't care whether it's earthquake or hurricane or flood or fire or, growing up, it didn't make the news. That kind of thing didn't make the news even once a year, much less several times a year, much less the sensational of the largest fire in recorded history, followed, a couple of weeks later by the largest fire in recorded history, followed by a couple of weeks later the largest fire in recorded history. We didn't reel from disaster to disaster. And as a culture, we've thumbed our nose at God. And we're still doing it. And we, His people, who are called by His name, need to humble ourselves and pray and seek His face and turn from our wicked way. Tonight we're in the book of Judges. We're in chapter 9. And it's actually a fitting introduction to Judges chapter 9. I'm just going to start in verse 1. Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem, and said to them and to all his mother's clan, Ask all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you, or have just one man? Remember, I'm your flesh and blood. When the brothers appealed all this to the citizens of Shechem, they were inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. They gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal Bereth, and Abimelech used it to hire reckless adventurers who became his followers. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, and on one stone murdered his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, escaped by hiding. When all the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo gathered beside the great tree at the pillar of Shechem to crown Abimelech king. Okay, so kind of to back up just a little bit, at the end of chapter 8, we learned that Gideon died. He lived to be an old age. He had a bunch of wives. He had 70 sons, and he had a son by a concubine, Abimelech. And Abimelech and his mother had lived in Shechem. The 70 sons that he had by his legitimate wives, instead of just the woman he shacked up with, they lived with him in his town. And Abimelech, he stayed in his mother's clan and didn't feel like part of Gideon's family. And that sets up today's problem. Because Abimelech, when he grows up and his dad's died, and he's not getting any more income from that part of the family, he's got to do something to make a name for himself. And he's an adventuresome guy, and so he starts playing politics, and he asks his clan to basically support him and be king. And so they say, yeah, that's a great idea. And he actually makes some false logic here. Do you want one man, me, ruling over you, or 70 men? Thing is, Gideon's sons were not going to be rulers over them. Gideon wasn't a ruler over them. It's the people, years and years before that had said, we want you as king, and Gideon said no, and said that his son wasn't going to rule after him, or his grandson, and didn't let himself be made king. But Abimelech brings this back to mind that, that makes it seem like they wanted to be king and have a committee rule the country. Well, that wasn't what was really going on. He was wanting to rule the country, and if he'd left well enough alone and just said, I want to be king, and people said, sure, he could have been king and left his 70 half-brothers alive. But he was the vengeful sort, and he hired basically thugs, and he went back to his dad's hometown and killed all of his half-brothers except one that managed to hide, the youngest one. And then he went back to his hometown to be declared king. Shows you how very clannish the Israelites were. These were people in the same tribe. You got to understand that. They were in the same tribe. They were that much antagonistic to each other. much less somebody else from a different tribe. I mean, why would you cooperate with a different tribe at all? We can't even get along together in this tribe. Um, and so he goes and kills his 70 brothers, or 69 of them, because Jotham, the youngest, did escape. And then Abimelech goes back and gets himself appointed king. Now, king of what is a little bit of a question, because he wasn't king of all Israel. He wasn't even king of the whole tribe. He was just basically king of that one city, or maybe the two communities together. Verse 7. Then Jotham was told about this. He climbed up to the top of Mount Gerizim and shouted to them, "Listen to me, citizens of Shechem, so that God may listen to you." One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." But the olive tree answered, "Should I give up my oil by which both gods and men are honored to hold sway over the trees?" Next the trees said to the fig tree, "Come and be our king." But the fig tree replied, "Should I give up my fruit so good and sweet to hold sway over the trees?" Then the trees said to the vine, "Come be our king." But the vine answered, "Should I give up my wine, which cheers both gods and men, to hold sway over the trees?" Finally, all the trees said to the thorn bush, "Come and be our king." The thorn bush said to the trees, "If you really want to anoint me king over you, come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, then let fire come out of the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon." So Jotham tells them a parable. Pretty obvious God gave him this parable. It has a lot of utility to it. The three most important woody plants in Jewish agriculture. The olive tree was the most important one. Fig tree, likewise, was very important. And then the vine, the grapevine. Olive trees produced olives, but also mainly olive oil. Olive oil was one of their big agricultural products. Wheat, barley, lentils, fava beans, greens of several different kinds, olive oil, figs, and wine, cheese. That was the agricultural products that the Israelites produced. And they produced them in enough abundance they were wealthy. Of course, you can feed your people well. And, so he's telling this parable about the trees wanting a king over them. Obviously, the trees he's referring to are the people of Israel. And the most noble tree, the one that produces olive oil, he can't stop producing oil to be a king. And so then they ask the fig tree, and he can't stop producing figs to be a king. And then they ask the grapevine, and the grapevine can't stop producing grapes and wine to be a king. And so they then finally ask something that's useless, a thorn bush. And the thorn bush agrees, but, asks that you stand under his shade. Well, thorn bushes, they don't have shade. I don't see anybody going, "Oh, I see a briar patch. Let's go crawl in it to get in the shade." That's basically what the parable's saying. Yeah, no. In a lot of the places here I walk in Benbrook, when there's briars, there's poison ivy. Yeah, I wouldn't crawl in briars. That would make the parable even better. But, you know, and the only thing they thought briars and thorn bushes were good for is basically killing wildfires and causing wildfires, and that was basically the only way people got rid of a lot of the briars and thorns, is they burned them out. And here in Texas, that's largely what has always controlled briars, is the fires kill them out, keep them from growing as abundantly. And so the thorn bush, says, may fire come out and destroy the secrets of Lebanon. Jotham is obviously making a pointed reference that, thorn bushes are useless and destructive, and their thorns are no good for anything. They shouldn't rule over you, and a fire will come out and destroy you if you try to stay under the shade, because that's what happens to thorns in that countryside, is they cause wildfires. So, he that ends the parable. Now, verse 10 or 16. Now, if you have acted honorably and in good faith when you made Abimelech king, and if you have been fair to Jerubbaal and his family, and if you treated him as he deserves, and to think that my father fought for you, risked his life to rescue you from the hand of Midian, but today you have revolted against my father's family, murdering his 70 sons on a single stone, and made Abimelech, the son of his slave girl, king over the citizens of Shechem, because he is your brother. If then you have acted honorably in good faith toward Jerubbaal and his family today, may Abimelech be your joy, and may you be his too. But if you have not, let fire come out from Abimelech and consume you, citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and let fire come out from you, citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and consume Abimelech. So he pronounces this blessing and curse on them. If they've acted honorably, well, clearly they haven't. May they be blessed by this, and if not, may there be enmity, and they get destroyed by Abimelech, and Abimelech be destroyed with them. Jotham understood the times, and he gives an appropriate curse. And he did it from the mountain that was supposed to give, that the Israelites were supposed to give curses on. He did not pick that casually. Verse 21. Then Jotham fled, escaping to Beer, and he lived there because he was afraid of his brother Abimelech. I don't blame him. I mean, he's just made his half-brother really mad at him. And he escaped out of the countryside, went and lived somewhere where nobody knew him, and probably his brother wouldn't be able to find him. Notice also that means Abimelech wasn't king over the whole countryside, because otherwise Abimelech had just, sent orders down, and, they would have brought his brother back. He got out of the countryside. And it wasn't all that far. About 2 days' travel. But he was politically safe from Abimelech being king. Verse 22. After Abimelech had governed Israel 3 years, God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, who acted treacherously against Abimelech. God did this in order that the crime against Jerubbaal's 70 sons, the shedding of their blood, might be avenged on their brother Abimelech and on the citizens of Shechem, who had helped him murder his brothers. In opposition to him, the citizens of Shechem sent men on the hilltops to ambush and rob everyone who passed by, and this was reported to Abimelech. So God brings bad relationships to this community between Abimelech and the citizens. They're related by blood, and that's why they made Abimelech their king. But after 3 years, there's bad blood. And so God has stirred up their spirits to be in rebellion to their king and put enmity between the citizens and the king. Anytime there's bad relationships, it's a spiritual problem. I'm just going to tell you that little secret up front. Part of what's wrong with America. We see bad relationships everywhere. The political divide is getting worse. People don't believe truth. We claim to be a post-truth America. Well, if you don't, seek truth and honor truth, you're going to get in serious trouble. If you don't put honesty and integrity first. What is truth? Truth is what God says it is, because He makes it truth. If He's all-powerful, if He claims it, it's His. If He doesn't, it's falsehood. I mean, to put it pretty simply. But physical reality is physical reality. And anytime there's a break in relationship, there's a spiritual problem. At least one side, one party has a spiritual problem. You can have a break in relationship because one person is following God and somebody else is in rebellion to God, and therefore they break a relationship with the godly man. But, it's that person who is rebelling against God who breaks the relationship. If people are in conflict with each other, at least one side, possibly both, have a spiritual problem. It's part of why God says, as much as is in your power, live at peace with all men. I try hard. Sometimes it's very hard. But on the other hand, I do a decently good job most of the time. The soft answer turns away wrath, as the Proverbs say. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to bite my tongue and not say the cutting thing back, or point out truth in such a way as to whack them upside the head. To be gentle in my spirit, in my words. Something else I want to note. The people had continued to call Gideon Jerubbaal. The name they gave him when he took down the altar to Baal, the false god. And, they called him that, let Baal contend, let Baal contend. And it's a continuing testimony that Baal is the false god. That Baal, what we call it here in English, Baal, is the false god. Gideon lived a long, prosperous life. After he defeated the armies of Midian, he had time to have 70 sons, and Jotham is obviously an adult by this point in time. So the youngest son is an adult. He lived to be a good old age, and it's been a long time. And they're still remembering that let Baal contend with him, and Baal never did anything to him. I mean, let's face it, if Baal was going to do something to him, been real easy for the Midianites to do it to him. He didn't. He defeated the Midianites. If Baal was going to do something, he lived a long time in his place. It'd been real easy for God to get him. He didn't. I think Gideon continued to use that name, even though it had the name of another god in it that he didn't worship, because he would point out Baal was a false god, and that he had won this great victory under the name of Yahweh. And so it became the name that everybody called him. And the appearance are they worshipped Yahweh. Well, Shechem decided that they were going to go with Abimelech, his uh, concubine's son. Now, Jotham calls her a slave girl. Um, that's probably she probably was not a slave girl. She was. That's probably an insult to her and to Abimelech. Um, all the evidence was before this. Uh, this was just a woman who fell under the charms of Gideon, and he had an affair with her, and she got pregnant, and instead of marry her and bring her back home to his clan, she wasn't willing to leave her clan, so he continued to go to her when he went to Shechem, but didn't marry her, didn't claim her as a wife, didn't support her financially continuously, made her be a single parent. Part of the problem with Abimelech, he didn't have a good dad figure. And then, might give her money every once in a while. And even if collectively he gave what he would have if he had supported her correctly by making her wife, by being inconsistent big chunks, it couldn't be used well. She'd be destitute and then suddenly wealthy, and spend it in a hurry, fast living, and then be destitute again, kind of thing. And Abimelech obviously grew up bitter about this. Well, when the citizens of Shechem get tired of him, they begin to go out and rob the people that travel by. And this was reported to Abimelech. Well, he has to have if he's going to be king, he has to keep control of the community and have an ordered community. He can't have a disordered community. Well, he started his rule by hiring the thugs, and now the thugs are going out and robbing people. Verse 26. Now Gaal, son of Ebed, moved with his brothers into Shechem, and its citizens put their confidence in him. After they had gone out into the fields and gathered the grapes and trodden them, they held a festival in the temple of their God. While they were eating and drinking, they cursed Abimelech. Then Gaal, son of Ebed, said, "Who is Abimelech and who is Shechem, that we should be subject to him? Isn't he Jerubbaal's son, and isn't Zebul his deputy? Serve the men of Hamor, Shechem's father. Why should we serve Abimelech? If only this people were under my command, then I would get rid of him. I would say to Abimelech, call out your whole army." Then Zebul, the governor of the city, heard that Gaal, son of Ebed, said. He was very angry. Under cover, he sent messengers to Abimelech, saying, Gaal, son of Ebed, and his brothers come to Shechem and are stirring up the city against you. Now then, during the night, you and your men should come and lie in wait in the fields. In the morning at sunrise, advance against the city. When Gaal and his men come out against you, do whatever your hand finds to do. So Abimelech and all his troops set out by night and took up concealed possessions near Shechem in 4 companies. Now Gaal, son of Ebed, had gone out and was standing at the entrance to the city gate, just as Abimelech and his soldiers came out from their hiding place. When Gaal saw them, he said to Zebul, "Look, people are coming down from the tops of the mountains." Zebul replied, "You mistake the shadows of the mountains for men." But Gaal spoke up again, "Look, people are coming down from the center of the land, and a company is coming from the direction of the soothsayer's tree. So, after 3 years, um, people get tired, and a man from the same clan, but from a different branch, instead of being from the branch of Shechem, was from a different branch of the uh, Hammer um, clan. Shechem was the son of Hamor, and so he's from a different clan within the larger clan of Hamor, and he's claiming that the ancestor Hamor was more important than the ancestor Shechem that the city was named after. In that kind of community, the older the ancestor, the more important they were, in one sense, yes. Abraham was clearly the most important ancestor to the Israelites. Isaac rather, was, kind of next most important. Jacob, Israel, was kind of next most. Then each of the 12 brothers that made up the 12 tribes, and Joseph's 2 sons were kind of next down the line. And so on went. And, the founding member of your clan was more important than some of the ones that followed after him, even if the ones that followed after him were more famous. Hamor didn't do much other than have Shechem as a son. Shechem's the one that did everything. That's when we get a city named after him. He helped conquer the land. Hamor apparently died in the desert rebelling against God. I mean, how important is Hamor? Really? Not that important, really. I wouldn't be bragging on him. On the other hand, Shechem, let's face it, he helped conquer the land. He did it well enough that everybody named the city that he conquered after him. That's kind of important. You did a good job as a warrior, and you were supposed to be a warrior, and you were. Okay, I honor that. Well, this Gaal, son of Ebed, he starts getting boastful when he gets drunk. And so basically the mayor of the city, he's Abimelech's right-hand man. He runs the city while Abimelech is out being a general of the army. And Abimelech has his army out in the field doing something, off away somewhere from Shechem. He sends a message that this Gaal is fomenting rebellion in the city. And so, they march all night, and they come back to the city, and they set up 4 different companies around it. Basically, they're going to ambush the city. And so Zebul and Gaal then have this conversation. Well, Gaal keeps seeing people walking down the hills, walking up the roads, walking where you wouldn't expect people to be walking that early in the morning. That early in the morning, they should be leaving the city to go out to the fields, or leaving their house to go into the fields that's near their house, and not coming toward the city. And if they were coming toward the city, they should be on the road, not out in the middle of the field, not, coming down the hill. And it shouldn't be coming in a big bunch if they're coming across the field. It should be, coming from their house to the city to sell produce or whatever. It's odd behavior. And Zebul kind of keeps passing him off. Oh, you're just seeing the shadows of the mountains. Excuse me. It was a long night last night. I'm tired. Emotionally rough day. And, now Zebul knows what's going on. And he's just trying to delay until it's too late and make Abimelech's job easy. And you know, when it gets to be the point where he can't deny it anymore, uh, Zebul finally talks to him in verse 38. Uh, verse 38. Then Zebul said to him, "Where is your big talk now, you who said, 'Who is Abimelech, and that we should be subject to him?' Aren't these the men you ridiculed? Go out and fight them." So, you know, he reveals, "Yeah, you're fixing to be surrounded by Abimelech's army. You better get busy." Well, after Abimelech obviously has things well under control, and Gaal is late getting his men organized. Verse 39. So Gaal led out the citizens of Shechem and fought Abimelech. Abimelech chased him, and many fell wounded in the fight, all the way to the entrance of the gate. Abimelech stayed in Arumah, and Zebul drove Gaal and his brothers out of Shechem. The next day, the people of Shechem went out to the fields, and this was reported to Abimelech. So he took his men, divided them into 3 companies, and set an ambush in the fields. When he saw the people coming out of the city, he rose up to attack them. Abimelech and the companies with him rushed forward to a position at the entrance of the city gate. Then 2 companies rushed upon those in the fields and struck them down. All that day Abimelech pressed his attack against the city until he had captured it and killed its people. Then he destroyed the city and scattered salt over it. So after 3 years, he has bed of blood relationships with his clan in the city he rules from. That when this revolt happens, he kills everybody in the city and puts salt on it so it can't grow any food, can't grow any crops, can't grow any plants. How evil do you have to be? Well, obviously evil enough to kill your 70 brothers on one rock. 46. On hearing this, the citizens of the Tower of Shechem went into the stronghold of the temple of El-Berith. When Abimelech heard they had assembled there, he and all his men went up to Mount Zalmon. He took an axe and cut off some branches, which he lifted to his shoulders. He ordered the men with him, "Quick, do what you've seen me do." So all the men cut branches and followed Abimelech. They piled them against the stronghold and set it on fire over the people inside. So all the people in the Tower of Shechem, about 1,000 men and women, also died. Remember, I told you that towers had a weakness as being a defense fortification, and when Gideon had taken the tower in Peniel, yeah, there we go. Took it down with a rope and killed everybody in it. Basically pulled it over. Well, Abimelech, his son, knew the weaknesses of towers, and he was the king that ordered that his men follow what he did. And he cut a branch down and took it up, and they piled them up around the tower and burned people down. 1,000 people died in that fire. You know, towers have a serious weakness. You have to be willing to, and have the arrows and stones and slings and everything else to just, continually rain deadly assault down on anybody trying to come up against your tower. If you run out of ammo, It's a serious weakness. You can't defend this area. Well, they burned it, and the people died. Next, Abimelech, verse 50. Next, Abimelech went to Thebez and besieged it and captured it. Inside the city, however, was a strong tower to which all the men and women, all the people of the city, fled. They locked themselves in and climbed up to the tower roof. Abimelech went to the tower and stormed it, but as he approached the entrance to the tower to set it on fire, a woman dropped an upper millstone in his head and cracked his skull. So, you know, they do have a defensive purpose. As long as you have enough armament and can, you know, throw enough stones, throw enough arrows, throw enough javelins, throw enough spears, kill the enemy that attacks, you do have the high ground. Well, Abimelech was going to go destroy this tower just the same as he had the previous one. And some woman goes, you know, I'm not going to burn to death. I might starve to death if I don't get my millstone back and can't grind grain, but it's better than burning to death. I can go, if I live, I can make a new millstone. And so she threw a millstone out. Basically, they had a big stone sitting with a dished out, and they put their grain in there, and a big stone over the top with a handle on it, and just churned it around and ground grain that way and made it into flour. And the upper stone, it had to be small enough that a woman could lift it to get the flour out from under it. But it needed to be heavy enough that it ground grain. So they were typically 20 to 50 pounds. And then the rock underneath it, very often was, you wanted it big enough that it didn't move no matter what you did. They were very often, 300 to 500 pound range. And the upper millstone was movable, and people could pick it up and carry it. Well, this woman picks up her upper millstone and drops it over the side of the tower and hits Abimelech in the head. Pretty serious blow. Could have been instantly lethal. She obviously didn't hit him square blow. Just cracked his skull. Verse 54. Hurriedly he called to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and kill me so that they can't say, 'A woman killed him.'" So his servant ran him through and he died. When the Israelites saw that Abimelech was dead, they went home. In other words, fight's over when the king's dead. There wasn't an opposing king. Okay, everybody's had their revenge. We've killed everybody in Shechem. We've killed everybody in, and then Abimelech's dead. And so everybody goes home. Verse 56, thus God repaid the wickedness that Abimelech had done to his father by murdering his 70 brothers. God also made the men of Shechem pay for their wickedness. The curse of Jotham, son of Jerubbaal, came on them. This episode teaches us about the dangers of being more concerned about your family than society. Abimelech played on those family lines, but he also violated the family lines by killing his half-brothers. And God doesn't honor that. And his kingdom only lasted 3 years. And then, in truth, a woman killed him. His armor bearer may have been the one that actually did the death blow, killed him before he could die, keep him from suffering. It was a way of committing suicide. He didn't want to be claimed that a woman killed him, and so had somebody else kill him first. He was too much of a coward to commit suicide. What a sad servant that had to be. Had to kill his own master. But the clannish nature, and they couldn't get along with each other, and petty divisions within even the tribes. And Abimelech was apparently a hothead. It's not directly said, but I mean, you know, lots of damage he did, and quickly gets destroyed. And self-appointed kings tend to be destructive, particularly in this time period. Now, kind of one of those side notes, Jotham. We know he survived and built a family, and because some of his descendants made it to Babylonian captivity and made it back out of the Babylonian captivity. So Jotham gave his curse, and God blessed that curse, and it caused it to happen within 3 years. But Jotham went elsewhere and set up a new existence, a new family, and we don't hear about him again until we hear about the Jothamites being taken into captivity in Babylon and then coming back from Babylon. So God blessed him. His line continued. But when you're more concerned about your immediate family and who your immediate family is and the politics of that than you are the greater good, it can stir up enmity that destroys you both. And that's what happened to Abimelech. Cautionary tale. Yeah, in one sense, Abimelech was one of the judges, but he ruled as king. He didn't rule righteously. He did it by murdering his father's brothers, and then, in turn, murdering everybody in his capital city, and then having his followers kill him. What a sad testimony. What a sad example. Gracious Lord, you are the Lord of hosts, King above all kings, Lord of all lords, Judge of all judges. You rule righteously. You rule in truth and righteousness and truth and justice and peace. Lord, have us to be concerned for the greater good. Have us to testify about the greater good. Have us to do things that are for the greater good, that we would love everybody. Even if they don't think our love is love, we would give them the warning they need to hear. Lord, help us to be truth speakers like Jotham, and not hotheads like Abimelech. Lord, help us to be as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves, as you told us to be. In your precious name, amen. I hope to see you Wednesday night at the Bible study, and if not, I'll see you Sunday. Hope to see you tomorrow at church. Bill has a good program planned, and if not, I'll see you back here next week at the Bible study. Y'all have a blessed week.